Hello and welcome to this myInnerGo presentation on how to make your endurance-based running program from myInnerGo Sport. You may want to grab yourself a pen and paper throughout the presentation to make notes on how to make your training program. The first two results you will see are endurance and power. Obviously, for an endurance runner, you would like to score higher on endurance than you will on power. However, you may score equal on both, or you may have slightly more power than endurance. As long as you're in the average to high category for endurance, you can do a few distances. However, if you are low on endurance and have higher power, it may be wise to tailor your training back towards more sprint-based events, such as 60 meters up to 400 meters. Other factors do come into play like VO2 max and anaerobic threshold, and these can have a massive impact on the kind of distances you should be running. If you're lucky enough to be listening to this presentation and have endurance-based gifts, then here is a few ideas on what kind of distances you should be doing at competition level and perhaps in your training. If you're someone who is very gifted, has either a higher average endurance, a high anaerobic threshold and a high VO2 max with any power reading, then all distances are applicable. You should probably use your gifts and go for ultra endurance events such as Ironman triathlons, ultra marathons and others. If you're someone who doesn't have all three categories, but at least has either a high VO2 max or a high anaerobic threshold, then most distances are still applicable. However, people with the other genetic gifts may be more prone to be better at the ultra endurance type events. Therefore, it's probably more applicable to do distances up to normal marathon level. If you fall into the category of having a high or average endurance, an average VO2 max, and an average anaerobic threshold with any power reading, it may be wise to pick an event from 800 meters up to 10k. The reason being is that people who have more gifted variants within the VO2 and anaerobic threshold genes are more prone to be able to continue an event for longer periods. Therefore, to use your gifts, it is better to stick below 10k. If your power and endurance genetic results have come back exactly the same, then please see the previous slide. However, if your power has come up higher than your endurance, what does that mean for you? Having a higher power to endurance doesn't mean that you should suddenly swap sports. Remember, you have to still take into consideration your VO2 max and anaerobic threshold. However, if you are gifted towards power, it may be wise to pick an event or a distance which is between 60 and 800 meters, depending on your VO2 max and anaerobic threshold. You'll be using certain power elements within those events, and this will give you the edge amongst other competitors. In training, it may be worth considering that if your power is high, that you should be doing more interval-based training than steady-state endurance. The reason for this is that it will go towards more of your gifts. Having gifts in your lean body mass allows you to have a better muscle to fat ratio and therefore a better power to weight ratio. Having a better power to weight ratio not only helps your joints as you run, but it also allows you to output less energy to reach the same speed as someone carrying more excess weight. Those who are not gifted towards having a good lean body mass may have to work harder to reach this good power to weight ratio. This is normally done using nutritional guidelines. Hypertrophy response is your body's ability to put on muscle through resistance training. Those with a higher hypertrophy response will build more muscle whilst doing resistance-based training. However, if you're not including resistance training into your program, you don't have to worry about excess muscle growth. If you are high on hypertrophy response, it may be worth considering doing smaller distances, as more muscle does mean more contractile tissue and therefore more power output. I would recommend doing resistance-based training for your sport if it involves doing anything below 800 meters. Training regularity and intensity. If your anaerobic threshold genes have come back average, then we would recommend sessions between 60 and 180 minutes at a maximal heart rate of 55 to 65%. If your session is causing your heart rate to go over the 65% on average, then we recommend it should last 60 minutes or below. If your anaerobic threshold has come back high on the report, then sessions can last between 75 minutes and a distance complete, especially if your heart rate is between 55 and 70 on average. If your heart rate is above 70 for the majority of the session, then it shouldn't last more than 75 minutes. Remember that adequate hydration, electrolyte, and glucose intake should be used whilst doing your runs. How many times a week should you be training? If your recovery is fast, then between 4 and 6 times a week is adequate, especially if you have good nutrition. However, if your recovery is slow, then we recommend training between 2 and 4 times a week with good rest days in between and making sure your nutrition is on the dot. Exercise effect on weight and basal energy expenditure. If your exercise effect on weight has come back high, it means that physical activity will burn more energy in you. If your basal energy expenditure has come back average and not low, it means that you are burning off normal amount of calories whilst at rest. This may be worth considering when choosing appropriate glucose intake when you train. Whilst warrior versus warrior may not have much effect on your training program, it may have some effect on the type of event that you may choose. If you've combat mixed, I wouldn't worry too much about it and just go for whatever event you decide. Again, you can do that for any profile that you have. However, those in the warrior categories are more prone to having a higher pain threshold, and therefore runs that involve obstacles and other hard aspects such as Tough Mudder may be more applicable. Those in the warrior aspect may pick more normal type events like road running, for example, as their sport. I hope this small presentation has helped, and you should now be able to pick an applicable distance for yourself, choose how many sessions you should be training, how intense each session should be, and know your natural gift for endurance-based running. I would like to thank you for purchasing myInnerGo Sport and finding out your genetic data. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. However, if you are someone who is looking for a professional touch and wants to go more personally into their genetic data, into their training program, and wants to make a progressive attempt to get into elite sport, then get on the portal right now and get yourself a consultation with one of our experts. I look forward to hearing from you all soon, and thank you again.